There is a particular kind of loneliness that hurts in a way few people can understand. It is not the loneliness of having nobody around. It is the loneliness of sitting in a room full of people and still feeling unseen. It is the loneliness of smiling during conversations while carrying thoughts and burdens that nobody seems to notice. It is the loneliness of looking at the world around you and feeling as though everyone received a map that somehow never made its way into your hands. If this feeling has followed you through different seasons of your life, if it has appeared in friendships, workplaces, relationships, and even family gatherings, then you know how exhausting it can become. You begin to wonder why connection feels so difficult. You begin to wonder why your heart seems to experience life differently than the people around you. You begin to wonder why you often feel like a stranger in places where you should feel at home. What makes this experience even harder is that many people misunderstand it. They assume that because you are quiet, you must be distant. They assume that because you are strong, you do not need support. They assume that because you keep moving forward, you are not carrying pain. Yet deep inside, there have been moments when you longed for someone to truly understand the battles you never spoke about. There have been nights when your heart felt tired from carrying responsibilities, disappointments, and silent grief that nobody else could see. You carried burdens that few people ever noticed. Your kindness cost you more than most people will ever understand. Some of your greatest victories happened in silence when nobody was watching. The fact that you are still standing says more about your strength than you realize. Many people who feel disconnected from the world have spent years trying to fit into places that were never meant to define them. They learned how to adjust. They learned how to blend in. They learned how to become what others expected. Yet, no matter how much they adapted, something inside them continued to whisper that there was more to life than simply belonging to the crowd. They could never completely ignore that feeling. They could never silence the awareness that their heart was searching for something deeper. Sometimes this disconnect develops because you have experienced pain that changed the way you see life. Hardship has a way of removing illusions. It reveals what matters and what does not. It teaches lessons that comfort never teaches. After enough disappointment, enough rejection, enough loss, you begin to notice things other people overlook. You become more aware of what is genuine and what is temporary. You become more sensitive to truth. You become more aware of how fragile life really is. While others may chase approval, status, or constant distraction, your experiences may have awakened a deeper desire for meaning. That difference can create distance between you and the world around you. It is not because you are better than anyone else. It is because your journey shaped your perspective in ways that many people have not experienced. There is also another reason many chosen people feel disconnected from the world. They have spent years learning to survive storms that transformed them from the inside out. They learned resilience through heartbreak. They learned patience through waiting. They learned faith through uncertainty. They learned endurance through seasons that seemed impossible. These experiences left a permanent mark on their hearts. When someone has walked through valleys that nearly broke them, everyday conversations often feel shallow. They do not necessarily crave more entertainment. They crave authenticity. They crave depth. They crave relationships where masks are unnecessary and honesty is welcomed. Yet those kinds of connections can be difficult to find. This creates a feeling of standing between two worlds. One part of you longs for connection. Another part of you struggles to find people who understand the person you have become. The truth is that many of the battles you fought were preparing you for a version of yourself that did not exist before. The seasons that tested you were also shaping who you were becoming. Every disappointment taught wisdom. Every setback developed strength. Every delay built patience. Every lonely season increased your capacity for compassion. The world often celebrates visible success, but some of the most important growth happens where nobody can see it. God saw the tears that nobody else noticed. God saw the moments when you kept going despite exhaustion. God saw the times you chose kindness even after being hurt. God saw the days when you felt forgotten but continued moving forward anyway. Not every battle you fought was in vain. Some of the greatest transformations in your life happened beneath the surface, far away from public recognition. Sometimes people feel disconnected because their spirit refuses to settle for what no longer aligns with their purpose. As you grow, Certain environments begin to feel different. Certain conversations lose their appeal. Certain habits no longer satisfy you the way they once did. This can feel confusing. It can feel isolating. Yet growth often creates temporary distance between who you were and who you are becoming. The person you are becoming may not fit comfortably inside old expectations. The person you are becoming may require new relationships, new perspectives, and new opportunities. This process is not always easy. Growth rarely is. Yet it often explains why your heart feels restless in places where it once felt comfortable. There may have been moments when you interpreted this disconnect as evidence that something was wrong with you. You may have wondered why connection seemed easier for everyone else. You may have questioned your value because you felt different. But being different is not the same as being broken. Feeling disconnected does not mean you are failing. Sometimes it means your soul is growing beyond environments that can no longer nurture who you are becoming. Sometimes it means your heart is being prepared for deeper purpose. Sometimes it means that what you are seeking cannot be found in the approval of others. One of the most painful mistakes people make is measuring their worth through the recognition they receive. When approval becomes the measure of value, rejection becomes devastating. Yet your worth was never determined by how many people understood you. Your worth was never determined by how many people stayed. Your worth was never determined by popularity, attention, or validation. You are worth far more than the moments that tried to make you feel small. Your story has value, even if it did not unfold the way you expected. The difficult seasons do not erase your significance. The lonely seasons do not diminish your purpose. The silent seasons do not mean God has forgotten you. In fact, many of the people who later became sources of encouragement for others first walked through seasons where they felt deeply alone. Those seasons taught them empathy. Those seasons expanded their hearts. Those seasons gave them wisdom they could not have gained any other way. There is a strength within you that kept moving forward even on your darkest days. That strength did not appear overnight. It was built one difficult step at a time. It was built through disappointments you survived. It was built through prayers whispered in private. It was built through countless moments when giving up seemed easier than continuing. The disconnect you feel today may not be evidence of abandonment. It may be evidence of transformation. It may be evidence that your heart has been shaped by experiences that gave you a deeper understanding of life. It may be evidence that your journey has prepared you for something greater than simple acceptance from the crowd. There is hope in realizing that you do not have to become someone else to belong. You do not have to hide your sensitivity. You do not have to diminish your faith. You do not have to silence your compassion. You do not have to pretend that your struggles never happened. The right people will not require you to abandon who you are. The right people will recognize the strength hidden within your story. The right people will appreciate the wisdom your experiences produced. The right people will value the authenticity that sets you apart. Until then, remember this. The seasons that felt empty were not meaningless. The seasons that felt confusing were not wasted. The seasons that felt lonely were not proof that you were forgotten. They were chapters in a larger story still being written. They were preparing your heart, strengthening your character, and teaching lessons that will continue serving you for years to come. The world may sometimes feel distant. Connection may sometimes feel difficult. Yet your life carries meaning beyond what you can currently see. Your faith matters. Your perseverance matters. Your kindness matters. Your endurance matters. The struggles that shaped you were never the whole story. They were only part of the journey that helped reveal the quiet strength already living within you. If this message spoke to your heart and reminded you that your journey has meaning even in seasons of loneliness, subscribe to the channel and continue walking alongside others who are pursuing faith, healing, purpose, and hope. Sometimes encouragement arrives exactly when it is needed most, and perhaps the next message will strengthen your heart even further. There comes a moment in the life of many chosen people when they stop trying to explain themselves, not because they have given up on connection, but because they have spent so many years feeling misunderstood that they no longer have the energy to defend every part of who they are. They have watched people misinterpret their silence as weakness, their kindness as naivety, their patience as passivity, and their depth as distance. Over time, they begin carrying a hidden weight that few people ever recognize. They learn how to function while feeling unseen. They learn how to smile while carrying unanswered questions. They learn how to continue showing up even when their hearts feel disconnected from the world around them. If you have lived through seasons like this, you know how strange it can feel. You can care deeply about people and still feel alone. You can love your family and still feel misunderstood. You can participate in everyday life and still sense that there is a part of your heart that remains untouched by the conversations happening around you. This experience often creates a quiet exhaustion. It is not merely physical tiredness. It is the fatigue that comes from carrying emotional burdens that rarely have a place to rest. It is the weariness that develops after years of being strong for everyone else, while wondering who notices your own struggles. It is the heaviness that comes from constantly giving encouragement while secretly needing encouragement yourself. Yet, there is something important to understand about these seasons. The disconnect you feel is not always a sign that you are moving away from life. Sometimes it is a sign that you are moving closer to understanding what truly matters. Many people spend their lives chasing acceptance without ever discovering who they really are. They become experts at adapting to expectations. They learn how to say what others want to hear. They learn how to fit into environments that slowly drain their spirit. They gain approval, but lose themselves. The chosen often experience a different path. Their journey tends to involve periods where they are stripped of false identities and forced to confront who they really are beneath the expectations of others. This process can be uncomfortable. It can even feel lonely. Yet it produces something valuable. It produces authenticity. The reason this process feels difficult is because authenticity is rarely rewarded immediately. The world often rewards conformity. It often rewards appearances. It often rewards whatever seems impressive on the surface. But the deeper qualities that define a person's character are usually developed in hidden places. Integrity grows in hidden places. Faith grows in hidden places. Resilience grows in hidden places. Compassion grows in hidden places. Some of the greatest work God does in a person's life happens where nobody else can see it. That is why many chosen people feel disconnected during seasons of transformation. The changes happening inside them are not always visible to the people around them. Others may only see the surface. They may not recognize the healing taking place beneath old wounds. They may not recognize the strength being developed beneath old fears. They may not recognize the wisdom emerging from years of hardship. Yet that unseen growth matters more than many people realize. Think about how many battles you survived that nobody knows about. Think about the moments when you felt like quitting but kept going anyway. Think about the nights when you carried anxiety, grief, uncertainty, or disappointment while still showing up the next day and doing what needed to be done. Those moments reveal something remarkable about you. They reveal that your strength was never dependent upon perfect circumstances. They reveal that your perseverance existed long before anyone acknowledged it. They reveal that your character was being built through experiences that could have destroyed you, but instead refined you. Some people only recognize strength when it is loud. They recognize confidence when it demands attention. They recognize success when it receives applause. Yet there is another kind of strength that often goes unnoticed. It is the strength of remaining kind after being hurt. It is the strength of remaining hopeful after disappointment. It is the strength of continuing to believe that your life has purpose, even when circumstances suggest otherwise. It is the strength of getting up one more time after another setback. Many chosen people possess this kind of strength, yet they rarely receive recognition for it. As a result, they sometimes feel invisible, but invisibility does not erase value. A seed buried beneath the ground is invisible before it grows. The roots of a tree remain hidden even though they support everything above the surface. Some of the most important parts of life operate quietly. Your growth may not always be visible, but that does not mean it is not happening. There may be seasons when you feel left behind while watching others move forward. There may be moments when it seems as though everyone else has found their place while you continue searching. During those times, it becomes easy to question your path. It becomes easy to wonder whether your sacrifices mattered. It becomes easy to wonder whether your patience was wasted. Yet some journeys take longer because they are building something deeper. A house built on a strong foundation requires more preparation than one built quickly. The same principle often applies to life. The delays that frustrated you may have protected you. The closed doors that disappointed you may have redirected you. The seasons of waiting that exhausted you may have prepared you. Looking back, many people eventually discover that the chapters they once wanted to escape were actually shaping qualities they would later need. The loneliness taught discernment. The rejection taught resilience. The waiting taught patience. The uncertainty taught faith. None of those lessons felt pleasant while they were happening, but they became valuable over time. This is one reason hope remains so important. Hope allows you to trust that your current season is not the final chapter. Hope reminds you that difficult circumstances do not define your destiny. Hope reminds you that God's work often continues long after human understanding reaches its limits. There are people listening to this message who have spent years feeling disconnected from the world because they believed nobody could understand them. Perhaps some people never will fully understand your journey. Perhaps some people will always view your life through the lens of their own assumptions, but understanding from everyone was never required for your life to have meaning. Validation from everyone was never required for your story to matter. Your value existed before approval arrived. Your worth existed before recognition appeared. Your purpose existed before anyone noticed it. God has never measured your significance according to public opinion. He sees the sacrifices others missed. He sees the tears others overlooked. He sees the battles others never knew existed. He sees the moments when your faith survived despite uncertainty. He sees the courage required simply to keep moving forward. When the world feels distant, it becomes important to remember that your identity cannot depend entirely on external connection. Human connection is valuable and meaningful, but it was never meant to be the sole source of your worth. If your value rises and falls according to how accepted you feel, life becomes unstable. But when you understand that your value is rooted in something deeper, rejection loses much of its power. Loneliness loses much of its authority. Disappointment loses much of its ability to define you. This understanding does not remove pain. It does not erase the desire for meaningful relationships. It simply reminds you that your foundation is stronger than the circumstances surrounding you. One day, many of the things that currently confuse you will make more sense. You may look back and realize that certain separations were necessary. You may recognize that certain delays protected you from paths that would not have served you well. You may discover that the seasons where you felt disconnected were actually teaching you how to build a life rooted in authenticity rather than approval. Until then, give yourself permission to stop measuring your journey against everyone else's timeline. Give yourself permission to acknowledge how far you have come. Give yourself permission to honor the battles you survived. The fact that you are still standing says more about your strength than you realize. The fact that you continue believing despite disappointments says more about your faith than you realize. The fact that you continue caring despite being hurt says more about your character than you realize. You are not defined by the moments when you felt disconnected. You are defined by the courage that carried you through them. If this message encouraged your heart and reminded you that your story still carries purpose, even during seasons of isolation, subscribe to the channel and continue receiving messages that strengthen faith, resilience, healing, and hope. You do not have to walk every part of this journey alone, and sometimes a message of encouragement can help illuminate the path ahead. One of the greatest misunderstandings about feeling disconnected from the world is the belief that it means something is missing within you. For years, many chosen people carry that assumption. They look at others who seem comfortable in every environment and wonder why life feels different for them. They watch people move effortlessly through social circles, conversations, and communities while they continue feeling like observers, standing just outside the frame. This difference can create deep insecurity if it is misunderstood. It can lead a person to believe they are somehow incomplete, somehow flawed, somehow less capable of experiencing the connection they desire. Yet many times the reality is very different. What feels like disconnection is often the result of a heart that has been shaped by experiences that changed the way it sees the world. You have lived through things that forced you to grow. You have carried burdens that strengthened parts of you that comfort never could have developed. You have survived seasons that revealed truths many people spend their entire lives avoiding. As a result, your soul often searches for depth where others settle for distraction. Your heart often seeks meaning where others seek entertainment. Your spirit often longs for authenticity where others are satisfied with appearances. That difference can feel isolating, but it is not evidence that something is wrong with you. It is evidence that your journey has shaped you in unique ways. There are people who spend years trying to become stronger. You became stronger because life required it. There are people who seek wisdom through books alone. You gained wisdom through experience. There are people who talk about endurance. You lived it. There are people who admire resilience from a distance. You developed it through necessity. The scars you carry tell stories of survival. The lessons you learned tell stories of perseverance. The faith you maintained through difficult seasons tells a story of courage that deserves recognition. Too often, chosen people overlook their own strength because it developed gradually. They focus on what they still lack rather than what they have overcome. They focus on the relationships that ended rather than the character that was built. They focus on the opportunities that disappeared rather than the wisdom that remained. Yet growth often hides inside experiences that initially felt painful. Looking back, many people discover that their hardest seasons produced some of their greatest strengths. The loneliness taught them self-awareness. The waiting taught them trust. The rejection taught them discernment. The disappointments taught them gratitude. The hardships taught them compassion for others who struggle. None of those lessons arrived in comfortable packaging. They arrived through experiences that stretched the heart and tested the spirit. Still, those experiences produced something valuable. One of the most beautiful truths to remember is that your story is still unfolding. It is easy to assume that current circumstances represent the final outcome. It is easy to believe that the loneliness you feel today will last forever. It is easy to imagine that the disconnect you experience now defines your future. But life rarely remains the same. Seasons change, perspectives change, opportunities appear, relationships develop, healing progresses, growth continues. The chapter you are living now is not the entire book. There are still pages that have not been written. There are still experiences waiting to shape your future. There are still people you have not met. There are still moments of joy you have not yet experienced. There are still blessings that may arrive in ways you never expected. Hope becomes powerful when you remember that your current reality is not the final destination. Hope allows you to continue moving forward without requiring immediate answers. Hope allows you to trust that meaning can exist even when clarity is incomplete. Hope allows you to believe that God is still working behind the scenes, even when visible evidence feels limited. Many chosen people become discouraged because they expect growth to eliminate every struggle. But growth does not always remove challenges. Often, it changes how you carry them. The person you are today is not the same person you were years ago. There was a time when certain disappointments would have completely overwhelmed you. There was a time when certain setbacks would have convinced you to quit. There was a time when certain losses would have shattered your confidence. Yet you survived, you adapted, you learned, you grew. The strength within you today was built through countless moments of persistence. Some of your greatest victories happened in silence when nobody was watching. Those victories matter. Every day you chose hope over despair mattered. Every day you chose kindness over bitterness mattered. Every day you chose faith over fear mattered. Those choices shaped the person you became. They strengthened muscles of the heart that cannot be measured by the standards of the world. The world often celebrates visible accomplishments while overlooking internal transformation. Yet internal transformation is what determines how a person responds when life becomes difficult. It determines whether they remain compassionate after disappointment. It determines whether they continue believing after setbacks. It determines whether they remain faithful during uncertainty. You developed qualities that cannot be taken away by changing circumstances. That is one reason your journey has value. Another reason many chosen people feel disconnected is because they are often being prepared to bring encouragement to others. People who have never experienced hardship can offer sympathy. People who have endured hardship can offer understanding. There is a difference. Understanding carries a depth that comes from experience. It carries credibility. It carries compassion. When you know what it feels like to struggle, you become capable of recognizing pain in others. When you know what it feels like to feel forgotten, you become more sensitive to people who are hurting. When you know what it feels like to walk through lonely seasons, you become better equipped to encourage someone else who feels alone. The very experiences that made you feel different may one day become sources of strength for someone else. This does not mean every hardship was easy. It does not mean every loss was necessary to celebrate. It simply means that God has a remarkable ability to bring meaning from pain and growth from struggle. The difficult seasons do not get the final word. The disappointments do not get the final word. The moments that made you question your worth do not get the final word. Your story is larger than your hardest chapters. Your future is larger than your current struggles. Your value is larger than the opinions of people who fail to recognize it. Remember this whenever the world feels distant. Remember this whenever loneliness tries to convince you that you are forgotten. Remember this whenever disappointment attempts to define your identity. You are not invisible to God. You are not forgotten by God. You are not abandoned by God. He saw every moment when you continued despite exhaustion. He saw every prayer spoken through tears. He saw every act of kindness offered without recognition. He saw every sacrifice made in faith. He saw every burden carried in silence. Nothing was wasted. The lessons were not wasted. The tears were not wasted. The waiting was not wasted. The struggles were not wasted. They were shaping a strength, wisdom, and resilience that continue to grow within you even now. The world may not always understand your journey, but understanding from the world was never the measure of your worth. Your worth comes from something deeper. Your purpose comes from something greater. Your identity rests on a foundation stronger than public recognition. The fact that you are still standing after everything you have endured is proof that there is more strength within you than you realize. The fact that you still care, still hope, still believe, and still move forward is evidence that your story is not over. Better days may not arrive exactly as you expect, but the future still contains possibilities you cannot yet see. Continue trusting that your life has meaning. Continue believing that your struggles did not define your destiny. Continue remembering that there is something deeply valuable within you, even when others fail to recognize it. Your journey matters. Your faith matters. Your perseverance matters. Your kindness matters. And the quiet strength that carried you through your darkest seasons will continue carrying you toward the future God is still unfolding before you. If these words helped you feel seen, understood, and encouraged, subscribe to the channel and continue joining a community centered on faith, healing, purpose, and personal growth. May each message remind you that your story matters, your strength is real, and your journey still holds meaning and hope.